want to break free.
Hello, this is literally Majora. You can call me Majora if you want, but my real name is Benny. Real quick, I want to apologize if there's any, rain sounds in the background. It is pretty stormy today, but I wanted to go ahead and record this anyway. So, you read that title right. Today's Majora Talks is about how I stole 3 separate video games from the same friend and got away with it. I had sticky fingers as a kid, and I will say that I would never steal anything now, but my friend actually asked me about the things that I took from them and just let me keep them. So, the first game that I ever stole from my friend was Donkey Kong 64. I had just gotten my own Nintendo 64, and it came with a lot of games, but not Donkey Kong. My friend, however, had Donkey Kong 64. They let me borrow theirs until I could get my own copy. And I really did have every intention of giving it back. But here's the thing. My brother had an N64 for several years before I got mine, and his didn't work anymore, which I really didn't know because I'd never seen his, because it didn't work. And I was very little when he had it. But guess what game he had? Donkey Kong 64. Yep. We already had the game, and I borrowed it from my friend. And on top of that, my mom bought me a bunch of games off of eBay so that I could get Majora's Mask, and included in that bundle was Donkey Kong 64. So, after a lot of coaxing, I did eventually give my friend a copy of Donkey Kong 64. But here's the problem. The cartridges weren't marked in any way. So, while the one that my mom bought from eBay had been wiped clean, and my brother's had a couple save files on it that were maybe about halfway through each, my friend's copy had one save file that was at about 95% done. You can probably guess which one I gave to my friend. And I didn't do it on purpose. I had full intentions of giving my friend their copy of the game back, but again, the cartridges weren't marked, so when I went to play the game later and discovered that I still had my friend's cartridge, well, I didn't do anything about it. And that's the bad part. They actually ended up asking me about it, and I think I don't really remember, but I either bullshitted and said I think my brother accidentally wiped it, or I said that I wasn't sure, I didn't really look at the save files, something like that, but they confronted me about it and I never fixed it. So the second game that I stole from the same friend was Paper Mario. It was another case of a Nintendo 64 game that I wanted to have that my friend had. The difference here is that my friend didn't really like Paper Mario. I can't remember why exactly. I just remember sitting in their room and playing the game and them mentioning that they didn't like it, that they thought it was either too hard, maybe they couldn't get the action commands, or they didn't like RPGs in general. I don't know. But they said they didn't like the game, and I asked to borrow it. This time around, I had the game for literal years before my friend ever said anything. I borrowed this game, in elementary school, and they asked me about it in high school. Hey, you remember that weird Mario game that I let you borrow? Yeah, why? Were you ever planning on, giving it back? Do you even actually want it back? I thought you said you didn't like it. Yeah, that's true. And that was pretty much it. That was the end of the conversation, and I still have that Paper Mario cartridge and still play it from time to time. Side note, I have no idea why my brother's Nintendo 64 quit working, because I've had the same one for 12 years-ish. And it works great, and it's been dropped, it's been left on for days at a time, and it's perfectly fine, so what kind of weird bullshit did my brother do to his Nintendo 64 to make it stop working? If he left on our Super Nintendo, it would have caught on fire within an hour. Anyway, the last game that I stole from my friend was a Game Boy Advance game. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. I got a lot of hours out of this game. I really liked it. This one kind of went down the same as Paper Mario. My friend had a Game Boy Advance. I didn't. I actually had a DS Lite, which played Game Boy games. But anyway, my friend had a Game Boy Advance. I saw them playing this game. They said they weren't a big fan of it. And instead of me asking this time, my friend said, "Hey, do you want to borrow this?" Of course, I said, "Sure, why not?" And again, I still have this game. I actually ended up buying the 3DS version with the Bowser's Minions thing attached. But I still have the GBA version. I still have a DS Lite on which to play it. The difference between this and the Paper Mario one is this time my friend never asked. I even played it at their house in front of them on my DS, and they never said a word. Although, to be honest, I think a lot of this came from the fact that their parents just kind of bought them stuff. Like, all the time. Whether they wanted it or not. And that kind of led to me ending up with a lot of their other toys, too. Although those were deliberately given to me. It was just a matter of, "Hey, I don't want this thing anymore, do you want this?" And I'd say sure, and then it ended up in my bedroom. And it probably still is there because I haven't gotten rid of anything in my life. But for some reason with games, they just didn't do it that way. I don't know why. You know, I wonder if they'd be willing to sell me some of the games that they still have. Because they had a lot of just random N64 games. Tarzan, which I was never allowed to play because it was supposedly too hard for me. They had 2 different Rugrats games, Pokemon Stadium, and I remember those games really well, and I'd like to play them now. I don't know about finding them online, but I'd probably have a good chance of just getting them from my friend. But yeah, that's the story of how I stole 3 games from my friend and totally got away with it. If anyone is interested in hearing it, I also have a story of a game that mysteriously disappeared while I was at a friend's house, and I'm pretty certain that they took it from me on purpose. So if anybody wants to hear that story, let me know. It involves a DS game that I played a lot and a Not a Surf song. If you've ever played the game that I'm thinking of, you might already know where this is going. So, thanks for listening. I'll see you on Friday. Bye!